Hey guys, welcome back to 52 Lockup. I am your Appletini Cadma of Bitten Apple TV. 52 Lockup is a series where I start to talk about one of my biggest passions, which is true crime. A new episode on every Cadmaniac Monday for 52 Mondays. Hope you guys enjoy. Be sure to leave comments, feedback, give me something. Like, subscribe. And just in case, for those curious, of course, viewer discretion is advised. Okay, in this episode, there's no intense gross details about like what happened, but nonetheless I'm still discussing the crime, so just in case, I leave that up to you. Thank you. All right, so today's episode begins with Jodine Elizabeth Serrin. She was born on November 21st, 1967 in Los Angeles, California, to Arthur and Lois Serrin. She had siblings named Michael, Nancy, Barbara, Carol, and Chuck Serrin. She grew up in Walton Hills, Ohio, apparently, and graduated from Bedford High School in 1986. She had an intense love for making flower arrangements, apparently so much that when her family moved to Carlsbad, and I apologize for my butcher that name, California, that she ventured out to even earn a certificate in floral design, which I have to applaud her on because I never know what I'm doing. I can grow them, don't know anything else about doing that. So Jodine had an incredible passion for animals, especially her horse Sam and her cat Angel. It's said that one of her, her major favorite hobbies was actually going horseback riding, ice skating, biking. She loved doing arts and crafts, kayaking, and taking very long walks on the beach. She held a deep passion also for helping others, especially homebound senior citizens. And I think that could be because she was also diagnosed on some sort of spectrum of schizophrenia. I was unable to find additional details about her specific diagnosis, but I will quickly say schizophrenia does lay on a spectrum. It is a mood disorder along with a thinking disorder. So when schizophrenia is active in a person, usually you'll see the symptoms of like delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech, trouble with thinking, and lack of motivation. However, given how active she was in hindsight, like in her life, I can take a gander at it and just take a guess. Maybe it was not as active in her, or maybe she had a specific type. Again, I remind you that her mental illness was only referenced to, but there are like very few details to find out about it. Now, just as a side note, because nowadays schizophrenia is referred to as a spectrum of its own, there are 3 prominent schizophrenia spectrum disorders, which include schizoaffective disorder. That is similar to full-blown schizophrenia with strong mood episodes, right? Like bipolar disorder or a major depressive disorder. The second one, there would be schizophreniform disorder, which is identical to schizophrenia, but the durations of these symptoms seem to space out between 1 month to 6 months. So it's a little bit, the time frame's a little different. And then the last one, it would be schizotypal personality disorder, which is similar to schizophrenia, but the episodes the person go through are, they're just not as frequent, or they're not as like intense. The person with this diagnosis can be shown a way to actually become aware of the difference between a distorted concept and experiences versus an actual reality of concepts and experiences. So, and she was considered to be very high functioning regardless of the mental illness. So she still depended on her parents for, other details in her life, like driving her to and from appointments, small little things. So she was constantly in contact with her parents, and I think because of that, maybe that's why she loved returning the favor to others who needed help as well. If I had to take a guess, maybe she fell into the category of schizotypal personality disorder, or perhaps schizophreniform. But again, I am purely guessing based on what others have said about her and how she has been described. In fact, one of the descriptions of her was that she was a very sweet, low-profile young girl. But let's continue on with her story. She was also supported with the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill, which is also the acronym for NAMI, N-A-M-I, which is an organization that was founded by Harriet Shetler, and Beverly Young. It is a U.S.-based advocacy group that identifies their mission as a way of providing education, advocacy support, public awareness for people and their families who are affected by that particular mental illness. So in order for the diagnosed individual to be able to like really kind of like support themselves and have a stronger life base, right? Her passion, like I said, was to help others. I mean, besides her favorite thing of doing walking, right, it's one of her hobbies, she would join the walkathon fundraiser for a bevy of groups each year who needed help. I mean, she had best friends over at Mariposa and the Copper Hill Friends group, and because she spent so much time there helping people. She had a very happy, healthy, close relationship with both of her parents, and whenever her parents called, she always answered. She kept in very close contact with them, and I mean, basically, she talked to them every day, right? So Jodine is out there living her best life and just giving back to others. So, while she's doing that, on February 14th, 2007, Art and Lois step out for a romantic dinner at the local restaurant. They want to go out for a movie. But getting closer towards 10 p.m., they were curious about their daughter because they hadn't heard from her much, right, for the day. And that's not like her. So Lois wanted to check up on her, mother's intuition. And they arrive at her apartment at exactly 10 p.m. They get to her condo at Swallow Lane, and they approach the door. They knocked on it, but there's no Jodine answering it, right, which is unusual. The parents could see that the lights are on in the apartment, so they go back and they're like, again, no answer, right? So they attempt to use their spare key, but the door was like stuck on a latch. Now at this point, they're starting to get a little overwhelmed, like, well, what's going on? This is completely out of the norm. So they break into the house, they break the door in, and they rush inside, and they like rush in or calling out for Jodine, Jody. They're looking for her. No answer. They head straight to their daughter's bedroom. And unbeknownst to them, they're startled, and they startle a semi-naked man on top of Jodine in her bed. He's a little heavyset, right? Parents gasp, they're like, oh my God, think like, oh my God, we just walked in our daughter having sex, right? So they turn right around and they walk back outside, and they're waiting for the couple to appear, right? And this is what they're thinking. They even told them, get dressed, we'll be outside. But yet it seemed like it was taking forever for Jodine to like surface, with the boyfriend or the lover to meet the parents. And as time passes, the parents are like, it's taken so long. So they actually make their way back to the bedroom again, but this time the man is actually gone. And now they come to the full realization that their daughter is actually dead. She was apparently so cold to the touch that indicated that she had been dead for hours. So for those who are curious about the time frame, it takes about 12 hours for the human body to cool to the touch, 24 hours to cool to the core. Now, rigor mortis will begin to set in after 3 hours until 36 hours after death. And then like the real breakdown of the body starts to like really kick in by the fourth day. This means that their daughter had to have been dead within the last 12 to 24 hours from 10 p.m. Now, deducting the time that the last time someone spoken to her, of course, that's where they would backtrack the time of death. And that's kind of how they would piece back, like, when the murder potentially happened. And it seemed that, Jodine was bludgeoned to death and then as well as strangled. So, however, what the parents actually walked in on was not consensual sex, not just the murder, but rather the perpetrator committing necrophilia, which is a sexual attraction to corpses. It's a paraphilic disorder involving recurrent and intense sexual interest in corpses. There are a lot of variations, apparently, of this disorder and still currently being studied to properly produce a cohesive classification of necrophilia. Based on the time frame and what he was found doing, the perpetrator would fall under what I believe is homicidal necrophiliac, where this is a person who is capable of having sexual intercourse with the living, but would be willing to kill a person to satisfy their sexual need to have sex with a corpse. Side note, depending on the freshness of the corpse, you can still get STDs from a corpse or pregnant. Don't ask right now. That'll be another episode. I'm sorry. I just, I need a minute because I can't really like process. Like, to me, that makes no sense. Like, I'm not judging. I am. I'm fucking lying. I am wholeheartedly like lying through my teeth right now. I am completely judging. Like, why? Like a corpse? Why? I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it. But right now I'm getting sidetracked, so let's finish Jodine's story. When investigators came to the scene of the crime, they struggled with finding an entrance point, which lacked any kind of evidence, right? There was no windows in the bedroom that had been broken or forced open. There was no sign of forced entry at the door. There was a pair of men's tennis shoes that were there at the door, like they took them off. But despite this, like, investigators refused to rule out a forced entry, right? So they're still trying to figure things out. As for the exit point, Art and Lois apparently left the bedroom and they went to a section of the condominium where they were unable to see the bedroom door or the front door, indicating that the killer could have just confidently snuck out the front door. Nothing in the condominium was like appeared to be missing. Nothing. It ruled out basically robbery, right? It's not a robbery gone wrong. An unknown male DNA was found at the crime scene, but when they ran the state database, nothing turned up, right? Now, what do we got here? We got no forced entry, no abrupt forced exit. Let's take a gander. Let's pretend we're solving this crime, right? This can indicate that either when they got into the apartment, she knew him, or she let him in under false pretenses, or he had a copy of her key. Either way, Jodine was watched prior to this attack, right? Because that would make sense. It couldn't have been that, like, sporadic. Police were confident that Jodine knew her killer as well. And a neighbor of Jodine, Samantha Raymond, would actually tell the police that she saw a man, like, running down an embankment near her apartment on the night that Jodine was murdered. She said that due to his speed, unfortunately, she couldn't get, like, a clear picture of what he looked like. So at this point, the police don't have much. Now, they have a time frame of when she was found dead and the last time she was heard from alive, and an unidentified necrophiliac, male running, and some DNA left at the scene, right? They're backed into a corner. They even put out a $52,000 reward on information that would lead to the arrest of this man. So now everyone's focused on, like, okay, this has to be someone that Jody knew. Like, this is the only thing that would make sense. Art told the police that he thought he recognized the man as somebody Jody might have known through, like, a circle of her disabled friends. Wasn't too sure. He said that if this was the man, then he didn't have a car and he used a public transportation or a bicycle. But by the time they identify this one particular guy, he provides DNA sample, didn't match the crime scene. So he gets ruled out. Now they're back to square one. And they just keep hitting square one over and over and over and over. And to the point that this case goes cold for a solid 10 years. So, now, this little company, Parabon Nanolabs, is actually a DNA technology company that is developing the next generation therapeutic and forensic products by leveraging the enormous power of DNA. One of their latest breakthroughs is that in 2017, was their snapshot DNA analysis, right? Services with basically that were like genetic genealogy, identifying a subject by searching for relatives in public databases and building family trees, right? There's also DNA phenotyping, which predicts the physical appearance and ancestry of an unknown person from their DNA. Kinship interference determines the kinship between DNA samples out to 6 degrees of the relatedness, right? So they were able to transform what the perp's genetic material found at the crime scene would look like, right? So they got this digital image of this guy, and because of this advanced process, they were able to figure out the suspect's skin color, eye color, hair color, gender, ancestry, face shape. They figured out basically it's a white guy, right? And he has fair to light skin, green or blue eyes, blondish brown hair. some freckles. They found that he was probably 30s to 40s of Northern European descent, right? So after they get this digital image of him, they put it together on the 10th year of the anniversary, and the police release it. And they're like, hey, anyone seen this? Does he look kind of familiar? So matching this with who her parents saw in Jodine's bedroom, which they described as kind of like a heavyset man with a little bit of a large stomach, disheveled hair, and he has to be around 5'8" to 6 feet tall. So this technology actually provided some major hope that they would eventually find the killer finally after all these years, right? So after all this time, they checked DNA that apparently they had, from what I'm understanding, they had it, but it didn't match the database, so they didn't think it was him. And eventually when they went back, they eventually figured out who it was. And it turns out the killer was a man named David Mabrito. Or Mabrito, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. He's apparently a one-time Oceanside resident. He's dead now from suicide. Like 6 years later. He was 38 at the time that she was killed, and then he died at the age of 42. Like during the fourth year anniversary of her death. I mean, investigators don't know if Serrin and Mabrito even knew each other. They don't think they did, but they're not sure. They were unable to like tie the two together, and just as a side note, there are no definitive comments about his suicide. So it's just sort of random how this case kind of like came about. There's little said about David Mabrito outside of the discovery of the DNA matching the crime scene. So it's incredible that technology has come to this point where they can get a digital image of what this person could potentially look like. Then between this and then between that, they finally have the guy 10 years too late. Not even knowing that this guy has already died like 6 years prior to the anniversary, because he died 4 years after her anniversary. Now, I tried to look up as much as I could about the suicide, but like I said, there was very little found about the suicide. So I don't know if it was a mental illness, a depression that was going on, if something else happened, or if it was actually guilt. There's no reference that he may have committed any other crimes. It's just purely this one. And it's sad how this all occurs, especially because she's someone who is, again, a smile that lights up a room, giving to other people, very loving and very endearing. Like, breaks my heart whenever those things happen, but it's intense to know like how far technology has really come. For cold cases are now slowly getting solved one by one, because they're taking the precautions of going, hey, wait a minute, we got this guy. But aside from all that, I mean, my heart obviously goes out to her parents, because that's a hell of a way to walk in on your kid when you think they're having sex. You walk away to give them a minute to get their clothes back on, only to realize that your child is dead and that person is actually a necrophiliac. It's not like her body like cooled off like within that time, like, oh no, just 10 minutes, and then they were out. It's like I'm really having trouble like processing that, because it's just, that is way too much. I can't wrap my head around the idea of someone not being interactive with you in bed, and nonetheless rigor mortis is setting in. So it's just like, all right, I think I'm thinking way too hard about this, because I'm going to catch myself an aneurysm trying to think about that. But it's relatively insane. And it's a really sad case. It's for the parents to walk in on this on Valentine's Day, and you got to know like that's never going to be the same for them. And of course, she survived by her parents at the time, and all of her siblings. But what the fuck? Like, it's such a strange case, because no one can pinpoint if they knew each other prior. But then you have the small little things like there was a pair of men's tennis shoes at the front door, so Did he leave him at the door because he wanted to sneak around the house, or did she know him and she made him take off his shoes? And if she didn't know him, how come nobody else had heard of him? Were they dating, or was this just a side thing? Like, what the hell was happening? And if he did not know her, then it definitely means that he sat there, thought about it very carefully, plotted, watched her, and made his way into the home, which can happen. Like, right, keys go missing. They may make a copy of your keys. When someone really preys upon another person, they truly watch them. They watch their habits. They see who's in association with them, who they talk to, who comes around. They try to learn their schedule. They try to see when someone that they know frequently comes around, right? And they want to know everything about that so they can plan meticulously to do what they're going to do. And it's such a strange case. I mean, I'm glad that it's solved, but nonetheless, there's still so many unanswered questions, particularly about this case. But I am grateful for the fact that, DNA, we got phenotyping, we got so much more now, especially now thanks to this company that's really branching out in forensics to solve these cold cases. I know this is a short episode, but I hope you guys enjoyed watching 52 Lockup with me and learning about Jodine Serrin and, of course, all the new technology that's out to solve her cold case. But that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Woo!